Well, two suspects linked to the Nomzamo Tavern shootings are expected in court today. It is their first appearance. Back in July, 16 people were killed when the gunman opened fire on patrons. The suspects arrested last week outside the court for us this morning is Heidi Giokos at the Orlando Magistrates Court. Hello to you, Heidi. And let's just, first of all, before we talk about the appearance itself, we're hearing the community members as well. They say they also want to question and interview the suspects. Good morning.
Yes, indeed, Gareth. We do know that community members are perhaps expected to be outside Orlando Magistrates Court this morning. And the reason for this is because they finally are going to be able to perhaps put two faces to that very tragic shooting that happened in late July, where 16 people were shot and killed in Nomzamo at a tavern, at the Mglalose's tavern. And the community wants answers. Our reporter Moloko Moloto had engaged with the community yesterday, where he went and actually spoke to one of the survivors who pretended to be dead, and he was recounting what it sounded like, what it felt like to be in that tavern and have 16 people dead around him. 150 cartridges were found on the scene, according to Police Minister Bheki Cele. But we do know that community members want answers, and they feel as though these two suspects that were arrested on Friday should come back to the community and tell them exactly what happened and why 16 patrons were gunned down. Of course, that's very unlikely to happen, but perhaps community members are going to be coming outside the court to engage further and perhaps, just show their support and solidarity, because they want answers, and they do feel as though police have basically neglected the Nomzamo area, because soon after that tragic shooting, I had covered extensively when the Amabarete were deployed to this area, and community members are now telling eNCA that they have not seen the Amabarete for a very long time, and they basically live in fear.
Yeah, and this is exactly what I was going to ask you next as well. The community obviously wanting answers, not just from the suspects, but also from police, Heidi, because guns are still an issue in the area. We'll circle back to the community in a moment. Let's just talk about what we do know about these suspects. So one arrested on Thursday, one arrested on Friday, but I also understand the police saying that more arrests are imminent. It's not just these two appearing today.
Yes, so we do know that Provincial Police Commissioner Elias Mawela has been hard at work to try and get these suspects arrested. We have been asking him almost every single week at Ukai Mulao operations whether or not any arrests have been made. I think what's made it very difficult for police in the province is the fact that we know that the suspects are believed not to be in the country, and that has made it particularly difficult for Gauteng police to pounce and make these arrests. But we do know that, according to Elias Mawela, who's the police commissioner in the province, has indicated that he has spoken to his counterparts. He was unable and not really willing to tell us which countries these suspects come from, if it's one particular country or a number of countries, but it seems as though strides have been made, because two suspects have been arrested. What's interesting, though, is that the two suspects that were arrested in the country, from my understanding, because the one suspect was arrested. It seems as though it was an intelligence operation, and that suspect then led the police to a second suspect that was arrested in the Northern Cape. What's crucial to understand in this matter is that there are still 5 suspects that need to be arrested, and they do not include the 2 that have currently been arrested. So I think there's still a lot of work that needs to be done from the police side, but definitely some progress given the fact that 2 other suspects have been arrested, and hopefully they will lead them to whether or not it's the mastermind behind this or the suspect that actually opened fire in that tavern.
Heidi, in conclusion, as I say goodbye to you as well, just give us a sense of security outside the court. Are you seeing anything unusual as far as heightened security ahead of the appearance, knowing how angry the community is, and we are expecting community members there later?
We haven't seen much activity here. I'm going to ask my colleague at the Tebogo to just show you. There isn't much presence outside court yet, and I think because it's still very early, we might be seeing a police presence, security presence, and community members coming through a little later on. It's right next to the court is right next to the police station, so perhaps there will be some kind of deployment. We're not entirely sure, but so far, as my colleague Deboko is showing you, there's nothing at all. People are just making their way to work, but we might be seeing community members coming out, and perhaps families of the victims that, of course, lost their loved ones through this very tragic shooting. So we'll just have to wait and see what comes out of it a little later on, Gareth.
All right, Heidi Giokos, thank you very much indeed. We're back to her again later. 2 suspects to appear in court off the back of the Orlando Tavern shooting back in July. Once court starts, of course, you can expect updates here on eNCA, and also if you follow Heidi on Twitter.